There's an epic tale in South Asia that tells of a time thousands of years ago when the hero Rama walked the earth. Known as a virtuous prince, Rama was the incarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu, the preserver of the universe. His loyal and beautiful wife, Sita, was an incarnation of Lakshmi, goddess of wealth and prosperity, and was always at his side. Rama was to become king, but was deceived by members of his family who were jealous of him. He and Sita were exiled for 14 years. Sita was abducted by the evil demon king Ravana to punish Rama. She was taken away in Ravana's flying chariot. Rama knew Ravana was strong and dangerous. Because of his good virtue, he acquired good friends. His allies helped him devise a plan to defeat Ravana. Meanwhile, Sita remained chaste and loyal to her husband, despite Ravana's threats and demands that she marry him. A battle was waged between the forces of Rama and Ravana, ending in combat between the two. Their fight was long and fierce, but Rama triumphed, proving that evil is not immortal. This victory ended the 14-year exile, and Rama was welcomed back as king along with his newly rescued queen. Nepal is a country of majestic beauty and rich cultural heritage. From the soaring Himalayan mountains to the tropical forests and savannas, the landscape of Nepal is as diverse as the people who live there. A true melting pot of cultures, it is a unique fusion of different ethnicities, languages, and spiritual traditions. Landlocked between China and India, Nepal rests between two of the world's major rising economies. Among the poorest countries in the world, nearly half of Nepalese people live on less than $1.25 a day. Walking down the streets of Kathmandu, one may hear many voices call out, "Namaste," the salutation used to greet strangers and friends alike. The greeting, used any time of the day, literally means, "The divine in me honors and recognizes the divine in you. I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides." Even with such cultural reverence, Nepal, like any other country, cannot easily escape the influences of its past. From its roots as a kingdom that has been shaped by the institutions of patriarchy and the caste system to the politically deadlocked democracy of today, millions of Nepali women have little or no power in society.
Women are seen as daughter, wives, and mothers in Nepali society. You see many temples in Kathmandu, didn't you? And the goddesses are worshipped in this country, but the women are not worshipped in their house.
While women are revered in the spiritual context, the reality of women's lives are often shocking.
My husband used to abuse me. He even used to take my earnings and indulge himself in womanizing. He kicked me out of his house and told me, "You have nothing here. It's not your father's dowry. Get lost from my home."
The underground nature of human trafficking makes it difficult to fully understand its impact. It is known that the global trafficking industry is very large, suspected to be in excess of $32 billion. And just as Sita was kidnapped and taken to a faraway land, these girls are stolen, sold, or deceived into a life of forced labor or sexual slavery.
It is difficult for us to figure out the traffickers' exact intentions because many disguise themselves as being from the local market of Repudia.
Patrol agents at the Indian border in rural Nepal have witnessed this occurrence daily. At the border, people are allowed to cross freely for trade purposes. Nepal Gunj, a small village just 4 kilometers from the Indian border, has been hit especially hard by the lack of regulation.
Trafficking is very common in Nepal, especially in the Nepalganj area because it's the border town between India and Nepal. Anybody can just come in, go out. The security is not very tight. So, I mean, it's very common and it's a big problem in Nepal.
With limited government support and over 400 miles of shared border, effectively monitoring the area is nearly impossible. The Nepali government has difficulty organizing public programs due to the unrest between factions. Because of this, it has fallen to citizens and non-profit organizations to combat the rising problem. Sati, which literally translates to friend, is a battered women's shelter in Nepal Gunj, which has been around for 14 years. Sati has helped over 2,000 women and children who have been abused or trafficked, working to re-implement stability in an otherwise unstable world. In January of 2011, there were 13 women and their 8 children staying at the Sati shelter. Gauri Rijal, 12 years old, was rescued from the border just 3 days before extending the link arrived.
My mother is no more, and my father works in India. I used to live with relatives, but now I came here to live with my uncle. I couldn't find my uncle's place and got lost.
Sati's second location, less than 1 kilometer from the border, rescues women they find in the area. It was these women who found Gauri before someone else could.
One of the women told me to go to Sati. She told me, they will help you find your uncle's place, or if not, you could stay there. That's how I ended up here.
Gauri's story is just one of the many successes of Sati. Fortunately for Gauri, she was found and helped before any misfortune befell her. Many others are not as lucky. Their stories are tales of rescue and rehabilitation.
2 women at the Indian border asked if I wanted to go abroad. I told them I was ready to go if I didn't have to pay anything because I didn't have a place to stay or anything to eat. They put me on a bus and told me they would meet me ahead at the border. I was about to get in the rickshaw when the women from Sati found me and brought me here. My husband used to get drunk and beat me. I was constantly abused, and that's why I am here at Sati. Now we have no home. Even if my husband came back, he has nowhere to stay. I don't know what he'll do.
I am 18 years old. I went through great agony and hardship. My husband kicked me out of his house. I had to collect wood and do heavy lifting. Back then, I was a mother of a 3-day-old child. I had a severe spinal cord injury. After being in the hospital, I couldn't go to my husband's place because he was married to other girls.
My husband is a drunk. He couldn't start the day without a drink. He used to brutally abuse me even when he wasn't drunk. He'd get furious for no reason. I tolerated this a few times, but I had to run away when he came after me with a knife. I ran to the forest in the middle of the night when I was 12 years old to save myself. I'm 23, but I have no idea how old my husband is.
The work done by Sati in stabilizing and housing these women is an amazing opportunity for them. But the ultimate hope for this organization is to be able to reunite these women with their families. In order to do this, abusive tendencies must be erased. To stop abusive actions, it is necessary not to change just one person, but to amend the thinking of the people as a whole. Nobel Peace Prize nominee Indira Shrestha is the longtime president of Shri Shakti, a women's professional development program that pairs the gravity of social constructs with the influence of spiritual awareness. Indira's work in the government and her research on women's development has brought her to realize the unfortunate condition that defines women in society.
At the esteem level, we have like gender equality is not a natural construct, it's a social construct. So those who believe it's natural because you are a woman and therefore you are inferior or you are disadvantaged. We tried through gender, conceptual clarity and gender, we try to sort of change people's, the traditional patriarchal underpinnings, structural as well as ideological underpinnings.
Just as in the story of Rama and Sita, these ideological underpinnings don't just manifest in policy change or a lack thereof. They become evident in stories and traditions passed on from generation to generation. Prativa Subadi, founder of Women's Awareness Center Nepal, or WACN, has been working for decades to empower women. Prativa has published 2 books and has gained both national and international attention for her work. WACN focuses particularly on the economic development and political participation of women.
women got voting right in 1948, even 1 year ahead than Indian women. And what I realized, we need voting right, we need to be in the politics, but at the same time economic development is very crucial. Unless economic development move forward, the political situation will be chaotic.
However, the political situation is making progress. The current interim constitution boasts more rights for women than ever, including provisions that give women equal rights to property inheritance. And yet, with 80% of the population living in rural Nepal, implementing change outward has been an obstacle in itself. Pragati Khatan is the director of Yuva Akosh, the youth program at Sri Shakti. Her generation is dealing with the situation in an entirely new way, working diligently with the youth in the rapidly expanding city of Kathmandu.
I think by abolishing anything, nothing's going to change. You need to first change people's mentality. You've just brought in new rules and laws which nobody is going to follow. Till you don't change the mindset of people, because they've been living with it for years and years now. So till you don't explain it to them that there's nothing wrong in being, like, you're born with it, it's nothing that you've chosen. So I think a lot of moral education needs to go in to change people's mindset about it, because by bringing in a new law, nothing is going to change.
Amber Prasad Pant, Dean and Professor of the Law Faculty at Tribhuvan University, agrees and is aware of the progress made through changes in policy. But he argues, regarding women's rights, most of the legislative action has been exhausted, and Nepal is at a standstill.
So what is now required is not to make new law, but to change the attitude. The implementation has to be very effective, proper, which has not been done. So what is required is the cooperation and attitude that should be towards the interest of the women.
The question is then, where does this large-scale ideological change begin? If the laws in place support the growth of women's equality, why aren't changes taking hold? What else is missing?
Education, again, you have to hit education, not quality education, holistic. People are just given this technical know-how, secular, but then not really tapping the human dimension part.
Because the country has to take care of every one of their citizen. And if there are citizens who are uneducated in the women's side, they have to be educated.
It became like a tradition, like some are following blindly because of the values and norm. And within these 20 years in the cities, this situation is changing, and that's why the alternative education is very important.
With an increase in education comes the potential for a favorable attitude change, but there are still obstacles, other barriers standing in the way of alleviating the situation.
I think one of the biggest obstacles in Nepal is illiteracy, unemployment, and I think also the culture, like the patriarchal society. I think that these three are the main reasons that Nepal's society, that a lot of people in Nepal are poor.
According to the World Bank, between 35 and 45% of Nepal's 30 million people live in poverty, most of which are in rural areas. Men tend to provide the little income each household receives, yet most families are too large for this to be sufficient. Even so, it is still viewed as the man's responsibility to provide for the family, while the woman stays at home. This, in turn, creates a situation where it is hard to obtain an education, preventing the spread of new ideas.
So I think financial resources is a major constraint as far as young children also concerned, because they can't complete their schooling, and they don't have enough to eat, forget schooling. So if you don't have enough to eat, nobody's even going to think about sending you to school.
Acquiring financial independence is a difficult task for women in Nepal. Thankfully, organizations like Shriti Shakti and WACN, who know much about the root of women's marginalization, also are working hard to create financial independence.
Currently, we are working with 250 organizations in 75 districts, and most of our programs now are implemented to these network partners, we call them.
In the rural areas, I think our projects consist of, we do workshops related to entrepreneurship because they have very little opportunity to learn about these things, because the problem with Nepal right now is employment. Not everybody can get a job. So you need to do something on your own, something with a little bit investment, because you can't rely on jobs totally.
It's not just long-term established organizations that are getting in the game. Another organization, Change Fusion Nepal, is in its second year and is aggressively promoting entrepreneurship through financially supporting underprivileged youth. They believe in the notion that the long-term benefits of teaching outweigh the short-term benefits received from handouts.
We are trying to create a movement in which a person will start a fishing industry, in which he himself will not get the fish and eat, but again he will create opportunity for others as well. So this is what social entrepreneurship is all about.
Kaesang Yudrong, a 2008 graduate of the College of St. Benedict, has taken this entrepreneurial spirit to heart and founded her own business, Padma Creation. She trains and employs women from Sati, giving them the financial independence that is at the core of making change.
Padma Creations is a social enterprise that mainly deals in empowering women who've been rescued from trafficking, women who've been inflicted with domestic violence, women who are very poor in Nepalganj, Bardia, and in Kathmandu. And we mainly help them in skill training so that they can lift themselves out of poverty, so that they can live a financially independent life.
I don't think I understood social entrepreneurship until I met Kaesang. What she's done with Padma Creations, she has partnered with Sati, which is a home for battered women, trafficked women, single women, and the work that the women do is paid for, earns them money, and Kaesang invests the money from the sale of their work back into that organization, not only to help the women but to educate the kids. So instead of the profit motive being the sole purpose of that business, she's using a business model, business ideas to help a nonprofit organization and to help those women.
She employs these women with more than a trade. She gives them an opportunity to be financially independent.
It feels really good to work. Padma Creation teaches us new designs. Even if I leave Sati, it is going to help me earn my living. That's why I asked if Padma could teach me the work, and I came here.
I didn't know about the training and this shelter initially. Sati taught me to do things like tailoring and knitting. I want to save money for my education. I want to be a teacher.
For 6 months, this organization has helped me with everything and taught me skills to earn my living. The skills I've received have made me independent, even when I am still worried about future expenses.
I don't want to stay here forever. I'll do the trainings that will help me stand on my feet again, and then I hope to open my own small business.
I was looking forward to finding a job in a restaurant, but now I'm here learning skills to be independent.
The women of Sati are thankful for the chance they've been given to work and be financially independent for the first time in their lives. They plan on educating their children and starting their own businesses. They are finally able to plan for the future. We have been invited in so we can share their story, to help these women flourish and survive. But we still live in a time that yearns for a positive change. Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. The average price of a human being is 500 times less today than the amount that they were sold for during the transatlantic slave trade. Not only is the amount of people kidnapped and enslaved increasing, but the worth of a human life is decreasing. In 2005, the U.S. State Department estimated that 800,000 people are trafficked across country borders each year, including more than 18,000 coming into the United States. But the problem gets closer. Minnesota is ranked 13th in the nation for sex and slavery trafficking. Like Nepal, the average age of these women is 12. And like Nepal, the main cause is poverty and corruption. The differences aren't vast, even if the locations are, and recognition of abuse and conversation surrounding solutions will provoke needed change. There are millions of women in the world, like Sita, whose battle of good over evil has not yet been won, whose stories have not yet been untangled. But even without an end, there is hope. Without an end, there is progress.